Insidexploration. I'm here with Graeme Sloan again. He's in Toronto this time, and I had the opportunity to sit down and catch up with him. So, Graeme, nice to see you in Toronto.
Wonderful to see you again, Mike.
Welcome to Canada.
Thanks.
Luckily, you didn't show up here in the midst of our winter, but...
Well, it's a little bit warm and probably a little bit too humid for me at the moment, Mike.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. It's a little drier in Australia. So since the last time we talked, you were talking a lot about the nickel exposure and the optionality at Beta Hunt, and now you have even that much more optionality with your mill. So this has got to be really exciting for you. So where are you at? What's going on down there?
It's a great period for us, Mike, really. It's so much has happened since we've last spoke, and obviously at that time we only had Beta Hunt, and we were sort of just new into the sort of changing the whole stoping and the mining and all of that sort of thing. Since that time, so much has happened. We've now consistently started to ramp up. We're producing 40 to 45,000 tonnes of ore a day, and a month, and that makes a huge difference for us, right? So the consistency's there. We've been able to go back and have a look at some of these nickel areas that are also there. It's still new, it's still early for us, but it's really exciting for us at the moment with Beta Hunt.
So you've been driving that ore drive on 16 level. Everybody's all curious about what's going on with the Father's Day, but you can't mine that fast enough for retail. So where are you at with that right now?
Well, it's interesting, and I can understand why the interest is there. It certainly makes it for all of us. But at the same time, we need to be disciplined in how we approach this. And at the moment, we are driving on the 16. We're close to finishing the end of the drive where it needs to be and where it needs to stop. And at that point in time, we'll then start to look at a sequence stoping. But it needs to fit in with our overall mine plan. It can't, if you get out of sequence in this, you run the risk of sterilising some of this material. And the last thing we want to do is sterilise any of this material. So it needs to be part of a very disciplined mine plan, which we have got, or very close to having now, especially with this drill program that's just completed and the resource upgrade. So all of that work has to be put into this mine plan, and it goes into a big mix, and at the end you work out what the best sequence is to mine. Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, the 16 level and the 15 and the 14, all where on the A zone where the Father's Day loan is, fits into that sequence. So if you try to get ahead of that and try to cherry pick this, you will lose some of this material. This way we get it all, Mike.
And especially because the nuggetry effect, as you guys have quoted it, you leave something locked in a pillar, and you could have another Father's Day vein locked in there, and you wouldn't even know it.
Exactly.
So.
They're so small that it's very difficult to find them, and it's the proverbial needle in a haystack. And if you don't take the whole haystack, well, you'll miss the needles, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to make sure that we get all of this. So that's the approach we've taken.
So what's the verdict on the western flanks? It's much wider, it's much chunkier. What are you seeing at depth? Are you optimistic that your grade is going to continue to go up at depth? And where are you at for mining the western flanks?
We need to probably dispel this myth about the grade going, definitely going to be better at depth, right? There's a chance it could, but there's a chance it could stay the same. So we just need to just recognise the fact that these things can occur, but at the same time, it's a bit like the specimens. They could be there or they could not be there. So we have to be a bit careful about that. But on the western flanks, Mike, now this is an ore body. Now, I can tell you, and you do your research, and you'll see that for a 6-month drill program to end up with a resource in the measured and indicated category of 944,000 ounces is at a discovery cost of $7.30 an ounce is just phenomenal. It's a wonderful achievement, and it sets Beta Hunt up And what it does now is it gives us the ability to put this mine plan around and convert that into reserve and be very disciplined in the way we approach and take our production on. So we can say with confidence what we're going to produce and where we're going to produce it, at what time and what grade. And that has just so many benefits that flow through the whole operation.
So you've got 5,000 meters of drilling that you're doing or just completing. The assays are coming back. What kind of a timeline are you kind of expecting for the assays to come around?
Yeah, this goes back to this discipline with across the board. Now maybe if I just throw in a little bit about Higginsville at this time, you know that we've just acquired this plant and we've acquired a lot of historic resources from that. What we need to do as a company to make sure that this is cash flow positive and we be consistent and we have all of the production data come out and we can give forward-looking numbers to the whole shareholder base as well as all the institutions and so on. We need to convert those resources into a reserve, and the only way to do that is a little bit more drilling. So since we've had such success at Beta Hunt on the drilling, to actually drill further around that area now doesn't make a lot of economic sense at this time. It's not to say that we won't drill, because we will. Because this Western Flanks resource has all the hallmarks of extending further down dip and down plunge. And interestingly, Mike, we're also seeing this go up. So we're now developed a lot of those areas on the way up. So it makes access into this stoping just so much easier, so much cheaper, so much simpler, and so much quicker. So there's a number of benefits that came out of this drilling, and that's certainly one of them. Getting back to answer this question about the 5,000 metres, the best value to spend that money for shareholders now is to convert some of the other resources that we have got at Higginsville into reserve category. So we can start to get Higginsville at the same level now as Beta Hunt.
For clarification, you're still doing the 5,000 meters of exploration at Beta Hunt, but they're going to do additional drilling on the Higginsville property.
We have done part of the 5,000 metres drilling, and some of the other meters that will go over to Higginsville. Okay. So we'll still do some drilling at Beta Hunt, because that's important to do, but it's less important at this stage than to drill at Higginsville.
Well, yeah, you have a resource, you're developing a mine plan around it, and some of the retail market hasn't exactly caught on to that, and for the life of me can't understand why, because you have what you need. Now you want to explore this other land package. So let's talk a little bit about that land package. You've got Baloo, you're stripping it. Things are moving along there. August is your first month of production, I believe.
Actually, July was the first month of production. Perfect. Just starting. Sorry, it's just. But July was our first month, mainly Beta Hunt, and just a smidgen of the some of the open pit or the old stockpiles from the open pits at Higginsville. In August is basically will be the first time Baloo will come into the mix as well for us. So.
And these being surface operations, they're far more profitable given the grams per ton that you have, right?
Oh yeah, the number of things. One, easier to access. They're less time to access, less cost to get to, and we have gone from trucking material, which Higginsville was before over 100 kilometres or around 100 kilometres to 14 kilometres. So that has a big bearing on the cost as well, Mike. So we have Baloo, and Baloo's new. It sits on a salt lake, and typically these salt lakes are being mined up and down this whole trend. We exposed the top of the ore, which was only 3 metres below the surface, so we removed the sediments off the salt lake, and the first material, the solid ground that you hit, was the ore. So that's very, very unusual to see. Usually there's an overburden that you have to go through, sometimes 10, 20, 30 metres thick. We went 3 metres and into the top of it. So that was a plus. Makes it a bit easier for us, but that all will start to go into the Higginsville plant this month and for the coming months to the end of the year for stage 1. And then stage 2, which the permitting is going on now, could come in early part of next year, or we believe there are other opportunities to supplement the mill without going to stage 2. We can come back and do stage 2 later.
So I'm glad you talked about that, because I heard on the conference call the allusion to that there's other areas of interest, and you just mentioned it now. So can you kind of talk about some of these other areas of interest that you're seeing?
Absolutely, Mike. The whole of Higginsville area contains around 1.9 million ounces of measured, indicated, and inferred, and that's a historic resource. So it's not a JORC compliant, nor is it 43101 compliant at this stage. A few more holes and a bit more work from our geologists, and we can start to upgrade it to that level. All it does is tell you that there's a lot of potential around that area. We've gone back and we've reviewed a lot of the holes, and I've actually employed a specialist resource geologist just purely to look at this. And the work to date has been really, really pleasing. We're starting to see a number of these, what were smaller pits, start to come together, and who knows where that can end up, Mike. So our pipeline of projects from Baloo is starting to grow daily. And I think with a little bit of work, we can convert those into mineable tonnes. So at the moment, we have a good, healthy line of production centres at Higginsville, which I think will grow over time.
Let's talk about that mill. You know, that's the keystone of this operation. Now, Beta Hunt is the cornerstone, but this is the key that's going to bring it all together. So what benefits are you seeing already? Obviously, there's plenty, but give us your take.
Oh, yeah, look, it's just... Without it, it was made life so much difficult for all of Beta Hunt, and well, obviously Higginsville wouldn't be there. But the reality is, this plant delivers immediate benefits, and first and foremost is the cost of actually treating Beta Hunt ore. It's like $15 a tonne cheaper to treat it through Higginsville plant than we were toll treating. That's a big cost saving to the company, great cost saving. But then you go other areas, you talk about the synergies between the two, not just the plant, but the things that you can buy in bulk rather than just looking at fuel for one, and water, and all of these things that have a big cost bearing onto the operations. But the plant itself, Mike, is obviously it suits Beta Hunt and it suits Higginsville. But the key to it is it sits dead smack in the middle of one of the most prolific gold centres in Western Australia. There's a trend that goes from way south of, and you won't know where this is, but it's about 120 kilometres south of Higginsville to maybe 800 kilometres north of Higginsville. Same trend, and it has these same big geological features going up through there. Now, we sit in between Kambalda, which has got a production record of 13 million ounces, and Norseman, which has 6 million ounces, and we spit dead smack in the middle. That plant controls almost 100 kilometres of territory. So anyone who wants to treat material will have to come in to see the plant to see us about treating their material, or it gives us the ability to look at others.
So I smell an expansion coming down the road. No. Maybe not in the immediate future, obviously.
But it just shows shareholders what a great acquisition Higginsville is for them. That's what it does, Mike. It gives them it meets all the Beta Hunt needs, and it meets all the Higginsville needs, but it also controls the region. I mean, how good is that? And that doesn't mean we're going to make acquisitions or anything. It just means that we have the ability to do. It gives us flexibility, and it gives us that word we keep talking about, this optionality, Mike.
So speaking of optionality, let's get back on the nickel. The AISC figures on nickel look pretty good. You know, what are you guys mining nickel at Beta Hunt still? Is that still in the works? I know that plant just around the corner is on it's not operating currently, is it? Is there any plans for them to kick that back up with the rising price of nickel?
That's the BHP concentrator, and from what we believe, that concentrator will start sometime mid next year. Right now, that's great. At the moment, we are treating some of our nickel that we're mining at Beta Hunt, but it goes up to a place called Leinster, which is quite a bit ways further north than Kambalda. So it is a long haul for us. We're still profitable doing that. It's going to be even more profitable when we go into the concentrator. So at this stage, we are looking to sort of certain targets around that we're going to sort of focus on. It's a little bit early to start to say we're going to drill those targets, but certainly we've identified some of them from the gold drilling that we did at Western Flanks. Some of those holes actually went through the gold ore body and further on, another 20, 30, 50 metres further on into the nickel targets.
I've seen them in all my pictures when I was there at the mine, and then going back over them, and you can see there was quite a bit of nickel. And when I was up in that stope, it was pretty impressive to see almost a meter wide solid piece of nickel like that. So I definitely see the value in it. People who haven't had my experience don't have that. All they see is the paper and the ASIC. And speaking of ASIC, it kind of leads me into my next question is, gold ASICs seem pretty high this month, but that's a lot to do with development. Can you talk about that? Because I think people miss that. They see that number, they get scared, and I really want to elaborate on where future ASIC is going to be versus what we just seen in the second quarter report.
At this stage, it is to a level, we'll bring that down, but it has to happen over a period of time. And again, it comes back to the fact that we're currently still mining the resources. We haven't finished the new mine plan with the reserves. So there's always this bit of delay between what we're doing now and where we want to be. Very shortly, we'll have the mine plan completed, and then we're able to come back and we're able to be more definitive around production numbers and cost numbers. And it'd be wrong of me, Mike, to give you those or even hint where they're going until that comes out, because we have to finish the process.
But it's safe to say that we're going to see much improved ASIC costs with the integration of HGO and further production.
Yeah, we've got so many areas, Mike, we're working on the cost reduction program. The Higginsville acquisition gives us the ability to start to really look at synergies. Even now we're starting to see these people swap around from site to site. We're seeing services being performed across both sites. All of these have a way of lowering the cost for us. And as I said earlier on, fuel is a massive one, a big cost. So we bring all of those down now because we're twice the size. We can get better deals, better rates for it than what we're getting at Beta Hunt. So both operations will sort of benefit from those, Mike.
Terrific. Well, I'm really hoping I get the opportunity to go back down to Australia, and maybe if I do, we'll get an opportunity to sit down and yet again talk a little bit about the project. You've been extremely informative, and shareholders have found great value in what you've said and expressed to the market. So really appreciate the time today, Graeme.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate you taking the effort, and look forward to you coming down to Australia, and showing you all of those. You can see it firsthand.